Just to let everyone know that we will be recording this part of the program, and anyone that does not want to be recorded is welcome to leave the program. If you continue to participate in the program, you hereby agree to our terms, which says that we are able to use the footage that's being recorded in our social media, including our YouTube channel. Thank you, everyone. And we'd like you to know also that I've asked Carl Sabar to join me on the panel today. Carl is a writer, a scholar. He published a number of books about Palestine and the Middle East, and he's a frequent contributor to this program. Carl, you could unmute yourself and say hello if you like.
Sure. Hello, if I like. Hi, everyone.
Okay. So before we get further, I apologize for the noise. There's some construction on our building. I wanted to just go back and show you a couple of things in the animation. Obviously, I'm just going to go through it very quickly. Um, so I want to go to May 15. So this is, I believe, May 15. This is the date that the state of Israel was declared. And you could see there were about 200 Palestinian towns and villages that have already been taken down by the Zionist forces, while the British troops were still there, were still in charge, and under the nose of the British mandate, uh, they were allowed to do whatever they wanted to do and kill and expel and destroy and bulldoze the villages without interference and without providing the Palestinians any protection, which, they were responsible for the safety of all citizens in Palestine, yet they did not fulfill the duty of protecting Palestinians against the attacks of the Zionists. Every Palestinian refugee from a refugee family has a date on which their village or town was taken down. And for me, I'm going to show you on April 25th, April 24, 25. I'm just going to let it run a couple more. Um, um, Now we got to the 28th. Yeah, we need to back out. There it is, April 25th. The village is called Selma right there. The like 1, 2, 3, the fourth from the top. That's my village. And that's the date. The village was taken down by the Zionist forces. And they were the 8 defenders who were defending the village were killed by as the village was run over by the Zionist forces. So the Zionist forces were very well organized. They were armed and they had vehicles, armored cars in some cases, machine guns and artillery. All that was facilitated by the British, and the British allowed those things to happen, and they prevented Palestinians from having any weapons and any means of defending themselves in a substantial manner. Um, so that's as I mentioned, every Palestinian was a refugee from a refugee family has a date that they can go and point to here. Thank you. So we will have a conversation now about what we saw, and I'd like to just start with Carl Sabah. Carl, give us your reactions and impressions to what we screened here.
Well, I think the most important thing that this animation shows is that, and we're still hearing this today, that the allegations by Zionists and Israel that they act in self-defense is an absolute nonsense, because of the 200 villages, as you point out, even before Britain left, 200 villages were destroyed or evacuated, or the people massacred. Um, if many Israelis or unthinking Jews believe that the story went something like, um, the partition plan was announced. We, the Jews, hoped to have the particular area which became Israel, and then we were invaded by Arab armies, and so that is how the Palestinian villages and the Palestinian people were affected, and that we had to do this for self-defense. And what this map very clearly shows is that 6 months before any Arab armies even came into Palestine, the Zionists set about a plan called Plan Dalit, which they'd always intended. I mean, and this is a lesson for us today, is to realize that allegations of self-defense are absolute nonsense, that Israel and Zionists feel they have the freedom to destroy Palestine, felt they had the freedom to destroy Palestine then, and feel they have the freedom to destroy Palestinians today. I think the other point I would make, which I've made before in a film which we've shown here, and indeed in my recent book, The Path to October the 7th, is that it is often said that on May the 15th, Arab armies invaded Israel. Well, they didn't. Not just because there wasn't an Israel to invade, there were no actual borders that the Zionists had agreed, but because what they did was the Arab armies came into Palestine, which was, a much bigger area of that map. Everything, it was the West Bank and everything to the east of the Jordan, and the Arab armies that did help out or try to help did that because they wanted to prevent Israel and the Zionists coming into the areas that have been allocated to the Arabs. So they moved up, later, not invade Israel. And yet, even I've had an argument with the BBC about this, even their website, they refused to take down the statement that 5 Arab armies invaded Israel. There's no argument about that. So I think that's an important point to remember when you read about and think about this whole period, that none of the Jewish and Israeli excuses and explanations are valid. The only one that is valid is that from 1917 onwards, the Zionist movement wanted to take over Palestine and to get rid of the Arabs. It was unfortunate for them that so many Arabs stayed behind. When you look at that animation and see the numbers of Arab communities that were destroyed or evacuated, it's amazing that, the 20% of Arabs that make up Israel today were able to stay, and them and their descendants. I think they genuinely, the Israelis and the Zionists, well, the Israeli army, once the state came into existence, I think they were genuinely surprised that they hadn't managed to get rid of all the Palestinians, which is what they hoped to do. And of course, we've seen in the 70 years since then, they've continued to try to do that and are trying to do it today.
Uh, Thank you, Carl. Another point I would really like to make is that the so-called Arab armies these armies were belonged to some countries that they were really controlled by the West. For instance, the army of Transjordan at the time was the commander of the army was a British officer, and Jordan was some political entity that Britain created in as a result of the Sykes-Picot Agreement. The same thing as Iraq was a kingdom that the Britain had created and appointed the king. And so all these armies, so-called armies, were all controlled by Western forces, and none of them really were authorized and had the ability to actually go and liberate any parts of Palestine that were taken over by the Zionist forces or interfere in those areas.
I think it's also true to say that I mean another indication of the nonsense of saying Arab armies, including Jordan, invaded Israel was that it later came out there was a secret agreement between Israel or between the Zionists and King Abdullah that the Jordanian army would not invade the territory that Israel claimed for itself in return for favors in the West Bank. So, even Israeli history and historians know that the biggest of the Arab armies and the most powerful didn't cross the border because there was this agreement. Nevertheless, it doesn't stop them saying over and over again, 5 Arab armies invaded Israel when they didn't.
That's definitely true. Anyway, I would like to invite any member of the audience who would like to join us on the panel to raise your hand. If you raise your hand for another reason, please lower your hand. And I'd just like to see the hands raised for people who want to join us on the panel. Please accept the invite if you want to join us.
Hi. Hi. I wondered if we could go back to the map because what's really clear from the map is how many villages were on the Lebanese border. It's sort of where people ended up when they fled, where they ended up going, and sort of get that sense of I'm assuming that the villages towards the south, many of them are in Gaza. All the ones in the north, most of them went to Lebanon. And just sort of where people ended up fleeing to when they had to, because I have never seen those images like that before. I mean, I knew people, refugees all over the area, but just talk about how the Palestinian population ended up being dispersed because of this. Who went where?
Yeah, I mean, this is the first time that I saw the sequence of how these villages were taken down. And before that, people did not really have any idea of about the Nakba. They know people became refugees and displaced, etc., but they didn't understand that this was going on a daily basis for 14 months, and with the level of detail and the scheme that was behind all this stuff that was going on.
Right.
This animation brings home how difficult was the Nakba for Palestinians, and how widespread its impact was.
So most of the images that we see currently are pictures of people crossing a bridge, and that was going into Jordan, but we don't really have, the documented history in terms of photographs of people going north, going south, as well as people heading east. And I'm going to get off.
I mean, I'd just like to comment on that interesting point, because the refugees went to the nearest border they could get to, and the other side of those borders is where the refugee camps were set up. And with some of them, particularly in Gaza before the appalling business of today, could actually see the places they came from. If you stood on the beach in Gaza, you could look across at Ashkelon, as it now is, and you could see the town that you came from or the villages near it, which must have been harmful. And the other thing I would say is that the preservation of village identities has gone on for generations. And if you go to a camp like Sabra and Shatila, which I went to some years ago, you find that every street has people from a specific village, and the next street has people from the village that was near it, and the next street has families from the nearby village, and they've kept up their identification with their homes. So it leads to intermarriage between people in one street or one street and the next street, rather, as you had in the village sort of community, and that has gone down from the grandparents to the parents to the children, and it's partly that strength of identification with a specific part of Palestine, which is going to be the downfall of Israelis and Zionism in the end, because it's not as if the refugees have now become a sort of homogeneous mass of Palestinians. For a Palestinian, that loyalty and that memory or folk memory of the village is an important part of their identity. And I think, people often don't realize that.
Thank you. Just a note for people who were accepted the invite to be on the panel. If you don't turn your video on, I can't see you. So if you want to be speaking, please turn your video on so I know who we have. And then this way I can call on you. So Wally, please tell us where you located, and anything else interesting yourself, and what you have in mind to say.
Yeah, thanks, Faisal. I'm in southeast Georgia, and I've been in the United States for 52 years, came as a student and stayed, got married, had family. But here is what happened. My grandparents' village on my mother's side was called Al-Mujadil, about 4 to 5 kilometers southwest of Nazareth. In about May 1948, I wasn't born yet. So the Zionists, the Irgun terrorists who belonged to Menachem Begin, came to the village of 3,000 Muslims and Christians who have been there for, I would say, thousands of years. So they came and ordered all the young men to the village square. So they gathered most of the young men who did not run away as refugees and slaughtered them in the village, in the village square. My grandfather was he was killed in 1937 during the great Palestinian uprising against Britain, which was allowing many Zionists to come to Palestine without any control. So the Palestinians rose up against it. And he was the butcher of the village, so he had his shop open, and he was helping the resistors, the freedom resistors, or the resisting of stealing of Palestine. One night they came to his home, the British soldiers, and lynched him. They lynched him outside the village. That's in 1937. So until 1948, when they came and they won the village, because it was a strategic village right on the highway between Nazareth and Haifa, and overlooking Marj ibn Amir, the very fertile area where Palestinians grew their crops. They killed the young people. My uncles, 3 of them, and 2 aunts ran for their life to Jordan, to Irbid in Jordan. And they died there, over the years. Israel wouldn't let us, because I was born after the occupation of Palestine, so I also hold Israeli passport, in addition to American passport. And I won't give it up, because if I do, they won't let me in to visit my remaining families in Nazareth. So they ran there, my Fatmi, my eldest aunt, was married to a Syrian guy, so he took her to Syria, ran away for their lives, to the Yarmouk refugee camp. She died there in the 70s, and they won't let us bury her in Nazareth because they said, we don't want to set a precedent. If we let you do that, we're setting a precedent, and every Palestinian refugee wants to be buried in Palestine. So they buried her in Damascus, outside Damascus. So it's what they did with my village, my grandparents' village. They came after the British withdrew about end of May 1948 and completely wiped it out from the air. They took over the British Air Force. They let them, have it, the Brits, before they left. They wiped it out completely, including my grandparents' home. And when, so then a few months later, they started, clearing the remaining the rubble. And they built a new settlement. They called it Migdal Ha'emek. Migdal Ha'emek means in Hebrew the overlook of the Ben Amir,
The valley.
area. It's over. Yeah. So, and they started bringing Jews from Morocco, from Iran, Romania, Czechoslovakia, all these Eastern European illegal settlers. And they built nice villas for them on my grandparents' lands. My grandfather owned about 100 acres. We still have the paper, the registration from the Ottoman times. We have the deed. I have family in Nazareth, and they approached us over the years to give up the land. They already stole it anyway, and they would give us less than an acre for 100 acre in Nazareth. We refused.
Yeah.
We won't give up.
Well,
That's our land. So
I need to interrupt you. I'm sorry. I'm going to allow enough time for other people to speak. So
yes.
Thank you for your input. And let's go to Jacqueline Tuma. Jacqueline, Tell us where you're located and what you have in mind. Unmute yourself first. Yeah.
Now, hello everyone. My name is Jacqueline Touma. I am now located in the Netherlands. I live here since 37 years after I got married to a Dutchman. I studied in the US and I worked. One of the firms I worked for was Reuters news agency. I was a sales executive by Reuters. This is my background in a nutshell. So, I want to talk about the Nakba. If I get emotional, please forgive me. My parents were forced out of Jaffa. I was born in Jaffa in 1947. And when my little sister was born, she was 2 hours old on 28th of April, 1948, where the Israeli forces, young girls with rifles, came into Jaffa and forced people out. And my father luckily found a van with a driver, and he got all the family, and all the family meant his parents, his 2 sisters, his wife, and 3 daughters. My eldest daughter, sister, and the baby sister, and including myself. We were fortunate. We didn't have to go to a refugee camp or something because what Wally said, we had also property in Jaffa and what is called now in the West Bank. The West Bank at a little village called Aboud, which is in the suburb of Birzeit, and Birzeit is in the suburb of Ramallah. So Aboud comes after Birzeit, very close to Tel Aviv on the east coast and on the east. So we went to Aboud. We had land. We could eat from the land. We didn't suffer what most of the Palestinians suffered, going to camps and being we were refugees, but not in the sense of refugees in tents. But after a while, money had to come for to support the family. And my father went to Jordan, to Amman. Yeah, the Palestinians in West Bank got passports, Jordanian passports. So now we became Jordanian citizens. And because of the Jordanian passport, actually we could travel easier than the ones that had the laissez-passer. So anyway, what I wanted to say is that, what did I want to say? I lost track of what I wanted to say. That everybody suffered in a certain way. Now in Aboud, yes, this is what I wanted to say. The Nakba continues because in Aboud we had a mountain of olive trees, and they confiscated that mountain. And now there's a settlement on top of the mountain. They cut off some of the trees, the olive trees, to make a highway from the settlement to the village down, so that the settlers can go freely. The settlers are protected by police. They wanted to make the highway, so they cut again from we had 197 olive trees. They cut away 96, I think. So we have now 134 or something left on the other plots of land that we had. I have a sister who still lives in Aboud, and we were offered to sell our land and to sell our property, and they offered a lot of money, but nobody sells. No one sells. They take it away, we think, okay, they took it. But nobody gets money for his land. Nobody is selling. And she is there and she says, as long as I'm here, I can protect the land. Nobody, but if there is nobody on the property, they will come and confiscate it. So the Nakba is continuing. The property stealing is continuing. The theft is continuing. The killing, everything. That's it. I can't hear you.
Sorry, I forgot my mute button.
Yeah.
But we have construction in the building. It's very noisy. I'm trying not to, but
Yeah.
anyway, thank you, Jacqueline. I know you've been a regular on our programs all for the last few years, and we really appreciate your continue to follow us and participate in our programming.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to learn about our country more and more.
Thank
More
you.
and to make it possible for people to know. Thank you.
Yeah. By the way, my father had a job after 48 in the West Bank, and he was in charge of all the 77 villages in Liwa, Ramallah,
Liwa Aram, uh-huh.
including Aboud was one of those villages. Aboud and Aleen and all these villages. There were 77 of them, and he used to work directly with all the Makhatir, Mukhtars from each
Yeah.
village.
Yeah, وجبنا واللبن.
Yeah, yeah. There's 77. I know
Yes.
all their
Yeah.
names, and I have a collection of greeting cards that he kept
Ah,
uh, from many of the village people who were in charge, the elders of the villages that used to send to him. And
yes.
every time somebody visits the museum, I bring the deck of cards if they're from a village near Ramallah, and we go through them and we pull
Ah,
out some names that they recognize and know the relative of them. Anyway, so it's interesting that you mentioned Nerlin because not Nerlin, sorry, Aboud.
yes, Aboud.
If I go through those cards, I may find if I find any, I will let you know.
May I say one remark over Aboud? People here keep asking, you are a Christian. How is it between Christians and Muslims, in Palestine? And I say, we never had any problems, nothing. We lived in harmony. We lived as brothers. And I give an example, Aboud. Aboud is a village that has the Christian Orthodox, the Eastern Church, and then the Catholic Church and other churches. And then we have also the Muslims. And the Muslims, there is Sharia, there is Al-Fawadli, and there is the Muslims. And if there is a wedding by the Muslims, the Christians make the food and bring it to celebrate with the Muslims. If there is a death by the Christians, the Muslims make they have to supply food for the mourners, for those who come also to give their condolences. The Muslims bring the food. There is no difference, not this what they try to say at all. I never felt it, never. All my years that before until I was 14 years, I went every summer to Aboud. Every summer from Amman, I went to Aboud with my sister, summer vacation with my grandparents. And we had a lovely time. Very good memories. Very, very good memories. It's a shame. I I can't hear you.
I keep from. Thank you.
Yeah.
And we go to David Mandel. Just a note: David Mandel was a schoolmate of mine at Oberlin, Ohio, Oberlin College. So him and I go back a very long time. And David unmute yourself and tell us what you have in mind.
Yeah, hi, thanks, Faisal. Um, a couple things. Just when you said that just now, this was like 1969 when we first met, if I'm not mistaken, a long time ago. And one thing I remember, and I until today I didn't know exactly where your family was from and where you ended up in the West Bank. One thing I distinctly remember was that when we first met, you introduced yourself as being from Jordan, Jordanian. And I hope I'm not embarrassing you, but I think that probably reflected the some of the mixed feelings of Palestinians who had been exiled in 1948, as your family was, and had been living in the West Bank.
Nobody knew what Palestine was.
Yeah, well, okay. I mean, I sort of did. I was beginning to learn, and partly I learned from talking to you. And I think it's really important to hear from um, people like Jacqueline and others who have spoken today and also other times to hear their real individual stories of what happened in 48 to really know that. I I was it was very very enlightening to see that film. I would like to see it again more slowly to better digest it at some point. I don't know if that's possible, but I think that would be useful.
Yeah,
One thing,
it is possible. It's actually available on YouTube,
oh,
and
okay. I'll find it. Yeah.
you can slow the film down and speed it
Yeah.
up depending on what you
Right.
want to do as you watch
Right.
it. So
Right. Right. But one thing that it struck me is that um, most of those places that were named that were destroyed and people expelled were in the area that was so supposed meant to be the Israel Jewish state according to the UN partition plan. And it just that tells me that was striking. I hadn't realized that. With a couple of exceptions around, for instance, the Lebanese border and the corridor to Jerusalem, which were obviously considered high priority by the strategists, the Zionist strategists at the time. But it seems that says that the main motivation, even though it was kind of random all over the map, was to really ethnically cleanse those areas. That was the primary priority, because even under the UN partition plan, the area that was supposed to become Israel had 40 some percent Palestinian population, and that obviously was not considered acceptable to the early leaders of the state of Israel, even before they declared it in 1947, which is important to know that so much of that happened before May 15th of 1948. And it was also striking that there was almost none of the incidents reported there were on the West Bank, and I kind of assume that reflects the agreement that they made with Abdullah, that he would take over the West Bank and that it would become part of Jordan. I'm not sure. Maybe I don't recall exactly when that agreement was made, or if it's known. Even I'm not sure. Curious as to when that was, and how much of an impact that had on the fact that they did, for the most part, in 1948 anyway, expel the population of the West Bank. 67 was another story. And also, I noticed that there were almost no incidents of expulsion and massacre and so on in what became the Gaza Strip. And I wonder, was there any hint of an agreement, similar agreement with the Egyptian authorities? I know the Egyptian army entered that area and was probably more effective as a fighting force than any of the others against the Zionist militias. But so maybe it reflects that more than any agreement. But curious as to whether you know any of the things about any comments about what I suggested. Anyway, thanks for showing it. Good to see you. You have to unmute.
thank you, David. Cindy, would you like to unmute yourself and tell us where you are, who you are, and what you have in mind? Unmute. Can you? Yes.
Hi, Cindy Corey from Jacksonville, Florida. And I just wanted to comment. I've seen this animation already. It's out there in the internet world. And I had ordered the book, All That Remains. Someone in this, one of the participants had mentioned that they wrote some research for that book, which I found interesting. One of the people who are watching. That's a book, if people don't know, that's about the over 500 villages in Palestine that were destroyed. It's very thick. I ordered it from Beirut after October 7th to become more educated about, what had happened in 1948 and before 1948. And of course, I've done other reading too. And I wanted to just share from a perspective of a non-Palestinian, and that I think I had a fairly average understanding of what was going on in Palestine and Israel, although I didn't accept the complete Israeli narrative. And I did do some reading about the displacement of Palestinians that was taking place, contemporarily, if I didn't have a very deep historical understanding. And what I'm finding a lot of is that as this genocide goes on painfully, with so much despair that so many of us feel watching it, and so much frustration at our leadership that promotes, and that we're seeing that these are policies that the United States has really had for decades. We were just unaware of it because the narrative in the mainstream media presented the Israeli narrative. And so it's kind of it's a real cold water bath shock to understand how we have promoted and covered and supported the continued oppression and apartheid, and now genocide. So at the same time that that's going on, our own experience, our own education, well, for some of us who choose to become educated about this situation that's been happening for so long and is happening now, I also see the strong resistance to that education, which is in the censorship and the oppression of the Palestinian voices and the pro-Palestinian voices. But I think it's a losing battle. The Israeli influencers and Israeli power brokers and people here in the United States who represent Israeli interests are trying very hard to influence our understanding of what's going on there. But I do think that it's hard to say that there's a silver lining when so many people are suffering. But I do think that the kind of unmasking of what's really happening there is transforming, for many of us, even those who may have been not so educated about what the Palestinian experience was. And that's pretty much what I wanted to share. And thank you.
Thank you. We go back to Wally. Wally has some additional information he'd like to share. Wally, please.
Oh, yes, thanks, Faisal. And that night when my grandma and my mom was only 19 at the time. She was born in Al-Mujadil in 1928. And her sister-in-law had two infants almost. One was 9 months and the other about a year and 2 years. So the boy, his name was Burhan, and the girl, Aida, the infant. So my mom was running behind her, and she noticed, she was sharp. She noticed that my uncle's wife was carrying boy on the right side, right arm, and on the left arm she had a pillow. She stopped her, told her, Wafi, what the hell? Where is Burhan? Where is Aida? She said, here on my left arm. Said, you're carrying a pillow. She was, too terrified to realize that she didn't grab her daughter. My mom said, stop here, I'm going back. So she ran about 3 kilometers back to her parents' house, still hasn't been demolished. And even her neighbors, the Jewish neighbors, what we called at that time Palestinian Jews, talked to her in Arabic, said, where are you going? we told you not to come back. If you come back, we'll kill you. Said, kill me, but I'm gonna get my niece. So she got in the house. Ida was crying, hungry. She grabbed her and ran back with her. That's how she saved Ida. Ida was saved, and Ida today is about, she's older than me, is about 80 years old. She ended up getting married and had 9 kids. They're all healthy, and you know, we thank God that she didn't. You know, if the settlers grabbed Ida, they would have named her Shoshana or something, Easter or Esther, and kept her or killed her. Who knows? So that story I tell in many occasions. When I speak, I tell it. When I was in college here on scholarship, I used to go to, I went to college undergraduate in Alabama, and part of the scholarship is to talk at Rotary clubs about Palestine. And people would not believe that we stayed in Palestine. 155,000 Faisal stayed in Palestine after 1948. And nowadays we're over 2 million people. We're 2.1 million Israeli citizens. And we will never forget, we'll never give up the land and our rights. And what they're doing to us right now, to our people in Gaza, is horrible. The genocide in them, they're probably going to get to us soon. That's it.
Thank you, Ali. Carl, did you
Yeah.
want to say anything? You had your hand is up. Go ahead.
Yes. I just want to make a couple of points. One about the silver lining that Cindy mentioned. I mean, you know, it feels sort of almost obscene to talk about it, but I mean, the fact is the events of the last 2 years have aroused the interest, particularly of young people, but also of older people who thought, you know, who hadn't thought about it much. And it's an illustration of how badly diplomats and politicians are in the face of a sort of popular movement. I mean, Keir Starmer in this country pays lip service to criticism of Israel, but the fact that his government declared as terrorists an organization called Palestine Action has led to huge demonstrations and arrests of hundreds of people, and there'll be another one, I think, in a week's time. And all of that is just drawing attention to the rights of the Palestinians and making countries realize that they should recognize Palestine and so on. So whatever the outcome was meant to be, the so-called self-defense of Israel, I think it's had an opposite effect. That's no consolation at all to Palestinians who are losing relatives and children and so on. The other point I would make, your mention of Oberlin College, a lot of people don't know this, but when there was something called the King Crane Commission, which went out to assess the attitudes of people in Palestine and Syria to independence and what should happen after the war and so on. It came back with a report which showed extreme hostility and opposition to any sort of mandate or control by a third party. This report was suppressed by the American president at the time, although a few years later it was revealed by a newspaper. But the point I was going to make was that Oberlin College has digitized a huge number of items from the paperwork of this commission, including photographs, including diaries, handwritten diaries of some of the people on it, including lists of the people they met. And I looked through this once and found that on a particular day, there was a schedule of Palestinians who were going to be consulted or who were going to give their views to the commission, one of whom was my grandfather. And there he was in fuzzy typewriting that at 11 o'clock he was talking to the King Crane Commission. So people are interested in that period, and the investigations that were made should go to the Oberlin College website and look up the King Crane papers. They're a fascinating trawl through, if you like, that sort of thing.
It's interesting. I think there is a building named after somebody called King.
Yes, he was the president of the university, I think. That's
Yeah.
why it all ended up.
Was he the one on the King Crane Commission?
Yes,
He was.
yes.
I went there for years and I had no idea. I don't know, David, did you have any clue, like anything about that?
Yeah, I remember having heard that, I was aware of the King Crane Commission.
Well, it's worth
that was-
exploring, and I don't
that
know.
was in the 1930s, I believe, is when that took place, and
Yeah.
they actually recommended an early version of partition, if I'm not mistaken.
We have access to photographs of the King Crane Commission, and I can retrieve those and perhaps share them with everybody at some point in the near future. Once I have a different source, not from Oberlin College, but from another source where these photographs might be. That's quite interesting, and certainly we will go to Oberlin and try to dig some of that information out. Thank you. Anyone else would like to join us here at the panel? Please raise your hand. And one thing I really wanted to bring out is if we try to compare what happened in 1948 to what is happening in Gaza now, and try to see what the similarities and the differences between the two. Obviously, everything that was taking place in Palestine in 1948, nobody knew about it until way later. There was no coverage from the media. Obviously, we didn't have any of the social media or any of that thing. So, given what was going on there and the number of people who were killed and the casualties and the number who were displaced, are we talking about an event in the same gravity and the same horror as going on in Gaza now, except that it was not publicized? Or I'm curious what everybody's thought on that. And we have a couple of people. Anybody else, please raise your hand if you'd like to join us. I'm trying to get one person on. But anybody who's on the panel, if you like to share with us, I know we have Deborah Andrew joining. Deborah, would you like to say something about that? If you can turn. We're having trouble hearing you. Go ahead.
I think someone else may be preempting here. I want to go back to the comment about the silver lining. While I understand phrase, I might choose a different phrase called an opportunity. I think that from my perspective and knowledge that I have so far, all of what has happened is because of the structures that exist for governance in our country, at the UN, at the ICC, and the ICJ. All of these things have been structured and their processes developed in order to serve those who were in power when they were first developed. And I think that our job here in service to the Palestinians and all they've endured is to examine those structures carefully and make the changes that are needed so that this will never, ever happen again. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see. Deborah Andrew, are you with us? I see you on the panel, but I don't see your video's not. Oh, there you just spoke, so never mind. Sorry. Anyone else on the panel would like to say something regarding the topic I mentioned earlier, the comparison between Gaza and the Nakba?
I'd just like to say something, which is that I think the difference is that at the time of the Nakba, there was at least,
Can't hear. We hear Faisal.
Yes.
sorry,
It's
can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
What I was going to say was that at least at the time of the Nakba, there was lip service paid to the possibility that this wasn't the best thing for the public to know about, and therefore, denials were issued that what was happening was really happening, and that if it was happening, it was with great regret that the new Israeli government had to do these things. Nowadays, there's no lip service paid to that sort of thing at all. The Israelis are proud of what they're doing. The two very right-wing ministers are constantly, making outrageous statements about what that they should be doing more, and anything that the international community says is having no effect at all. What the Israelis are doing now is as bad as what they did in the Nakba, but this time they're proud. They are overtly proud of it in a way that they tried to conceal at the time of the Nakba.
Mm-hmm.
Still a lot of denial going on together with that. I mean, you're right, Wally. There's horrific statements being made by the Netanyahu and his right minister. They're also in denial. Oh, there's no starvation. We don't attack people. We don't attack civilians.
cutting off.
And so too much of the European and American powers are kind of swallowing that. And of course, the other difference between the Nakba and then is the scale of firepower that we have, and surveillance ability, and the drones, and the heavy weapons. So the toll is much greater. I mean, as horrible as the Nakba was, I think the toll of destruction and death is even greater now by a large amount.
Yeah, we have Anne Eldridge. Anne, would you like to?
Yes, thank you. Can you all hear me?
Yeah,
we could hear you. We can't see you, but go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I'm in the hill towns, the foothills of the Catskill Mountains in New York, and I have terrible signal. So if I turn video on, it pushes me off. So I'll just use audio. I want to express, first of all, my there's no words for it. Apology as a white person, as a U.S. citizen, for these horrors that are going on in Gaza now and in the West Bank, and what was wrought going back centuries by white ancestors. So first, to just express that, and to say that I'm trying very hard to get educated. So I appreciate your programming. And I moved from Boston to the Albany area, and there's a Palestinian Rights Committee of Greater Albany that I'm very active with and learning from. Jewish Voice for Peace is a partner. And I feel the comparison, like the reactions to the current massacre and forced mass starvation in Gaza, to the horrors of the Nakba. It's the evolution of white supremacy and racialized capitalism, and what I've learned about as necro-capitalism, like pursuit of profit, even if it means, killing and slaughtering people. And it feels like the weapons industry, loves going to war, and the US stock market and hedge funds and BlackRock and the security agencies that are now running that just shameful, Gaza Relief Foundation. To line people up and shoot them as they're trying to get aid, or herd them in. It's just all beyond belief that our human species, like one strand of it, could have evolved to be doing these things. So I feel that the Nakba was horrific, but the weapons were not as quote efficient, and the use of technology, and the Britons sending spy planes in to gather information, probably so they can target journalists and aid workers. It's just, you cannot keep up with the monstrosity of what my fellow humans are doing. So I feel that Deborah's comment, that it's an opportunity, this horror, because one of my best friends from 13 on was, I didn't know, a Zionist, and I travel a lot, but she'd never go to Israel with me. And then I said, well, I would want to visit the West Bank and other areas because I don't understand what's really going on over there. And then after October 7th, we have not been able to have a relationship because I started looking at documentaries like 1948 and the film Israelism, and then telling her, how could you have kept this from me? You must have known how the Palestinian people have been oppressed, and it's an apartheid system. That's why you didn't want me to go. And so sorry to vent, but just this stuff, God, we've got to harness the opportunity if we're going to save humanity. And hearkening back to Martin Luther King's speech, August 28th was it 1963, and some of, the inspiration he tried to lift up. I got some Substack message today, like, are you more inspired by outrage or inspiration? And I feel like I'm consumed by outrage and heartbreak, but I need to look for sources of inspiration, and join with others. So the fact that we've gathered here today, and Wally and the woman in the Netherlands and you, the host, have shared your personal stories and you're still moving forward with hope towards justice. So I appreciate being part of this work. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. She's very precise, and she's telling it. She's telling the truth. So, Faisal, I want to say, Hebrew, and I went to schools in Israel, graduated from high school with Jews, Christians, Muslims, Druze, Armenians, and we never hated each other. We loved each other at the school. But what's happening now, I've heard over the years after I came, I was barely 19-year-old to the United States. What I heard over the years from many Israeli so-called leaders, that we need to Holocaust Gaza. And finally, they got excuse to do it. But history didn't start on October 7th. It started back 100 years ago, or even longer. My dad served in the Ottoman army, Turkish army in World War I. But he didn't fight, but he was only 13, and the Turks drafted him. And my grandfather said, he can't fight. He said, no, he's gonna just cook and polish their shoes and and wash their clothes for the soldiers. So Ottomans, Turkey lost First World War I, and that's when all the trouble started. When Mr. The Englishman, I don't even recall his name, his declaration, his message he sent to Rothschild. Balfour, yeah, Balfour. So he sent the message to his friend Rothschild saying there should be a Jewish state in Palestine. And when they questioned him, said, what about the majority of people? We were 95, 97% of the population at the time. He said, oh, they'll have to treat them nicely. Well, let's see what they're doing now. More than 10 times weapons were dropped on Gaza in less than 2 years than what we used at Hiroshima and Nagasaki in Japan. I mean, imagine 10 nuclear bombs were rained down on civilians. They say Hamas, Hamas, Hamas. That's baloney, They're killing the children and pregnant women on a daily basis. This morning, 63 children got butchered, and the world is watching. It makes me very sad. I stopped sometime watching the news because I get too depressed, I just can't believe nobody is stopping these monsters, these demons from what they're doing.
Wally, the gentleman you referred to, Lord Balfour, in his declaration, he referred to Palestinians as the non-Jewish people. And at the time, the Jewish people were only 5% of Palestine, yet the 95% were referred to as the non-Jewish population. That shows you how much thought of the he thought of the Palestinian. And oddly enough, Lord Balfour is from he's from Scotland. He's from Edinburgh, and I'd like everyone to know that we opened a Palestine museum within 1 mile of his house, just to so.
I will visit it one day. I will visit it.
Yeah,
Faisal. I will come there.
over 108 years after his declaration, we stick up a museum for Palestine just outside of his house, literally, just to show that we are still there and we have not gone anywhere and we're not going anywhere. And I invite everybody who goes to Edinburgh to go visit the museum there and see it. Deborah, you had your hand for a moment. Anything you want to say?
Yes, thank you, Faisal. I would like to bring to our attention, first of all, I want to thank you and everyone who's contributed and the maker of the film. This has been a very profound afternoon. I haven't joined you for a number of weekends because I, like Wally, just could not absorb anymore for a while. I needed to regenerate. But the comment that I would really like to share is that I think one of the things we need to be aware of is that people who take on the kinds of actions and attitudes that we are seeing of Israelis, this is what happened in Germany. It's a part of our own history in the United States. There, but for the grace of God, could go any one of us, unfortunately. I'm reading a wonderful book. It's called Stories of Personal Transformation, Reclaiming Judaism from Zionism. And I think it's worthwhile for us to consider asking how it is that people go down that path to begin with, and then how can we divert them from that path to a better path. It's such a tragedy. Thank you.
That's an excellent book, Reclaiming Judaism from Zionism. I know one of the authors. She lived in Palestine. She was Jewish, but because she spoke up, she's not allowed to enter Israel anymore. She's an American.
Interesting. Anyone else would like to say something, get on the panel before we wrap up? Ellen Gallant, let me see. Okay, let me try to get Ellen on here. Ellen, we're inviting you over. Please accept. Okay, if you can turn your video on mute and tell us what you have in mind. Go ahead.
Hi, can you hear me? So thanks for inviting me. And just because I was in the West Bank, and if anybody wants to actually go to the West Bank and see what's really happening, I suggest going to Green Olive Collective. They do amazing trips, alternative tourism, the Christian part, and Bethlehem, you'll see Bethlehem, you'll see Jerusalem, you'll see the South Hebron Hills. And I did a little bit of protective presence and some work details. But the reason I reached out, because we were talking Balfour. So when I was there, when I was in Bethlehem, Banksy actually has a hotel in Bethlehem. It's called the Walled Off Hotel. It's that area very famous for all the graffiti art. And there are two true pieces of art from Banksy. A lot of it is just local graffiti artists, but the two that really come from Banksy, one way up on the concrete cement blocks, it's two angels trying to pull the walls apart. So that's true Banksy. The other one relating to Balfour, if you're standing at the hotel entrance and you look straight across 10 feet, it says, sorry. And that's meant to be a message from Balfour. And it's really profound when you see it. And so sometimes I wonder if those people, and Balfour, Lord Balfour in particular, had known the absolute chaos they created, if things would have been different. But it's really, you can find the image online, but it's one word, or sorry. Very profound.
It's important to realize the mood and the thinking of the British leadership at the time, the leaders of Great Britain,
Yep.
and how they thought about people in their colonies, like Palestinians and people in Australia and other places. And if you research Winston Churchill's quotes, you're going to find a quote that that says that the Palestinians simply don't deserve to be in Palestine, and that the indigenous people in Australia and a few other countries do not deserve to be there because there is a superior race that's better and more intelligent that has taken over, and those are the people who should be ruling those countries and ruling the world. And this is Winston Churchill saying that there's a superior race out there. And why don't we hear about that? Why didn't we see these quotes that he said, and the policies that he put into, so in effect, and it's not surprising what Britain did to the Palestinians, because it was that those policies were fed by the thinking of leadership like Churchill, who were very racist, and they thought that the white race was superior and were better, which, you know, and people should find all the things about Churchill and tear them down in Britain, because they stand for racism. They stand for the superior white people, according what they thought, which is a fallacy, and is really, it's preposterous to even have people say anything like that.
May I add something to that, Faisal? Balfour himself was was quite a notorious anti-Semite. Part of his motivation was, well, let's get rid of the Jews in Britain and send them all to Palestine. And of course, he and the other Churchill and others were racist towards all the people in the colonial world of that time. But it's a strange phenomenon. I mean, Christian Zionism of an earlier era predated Herzl and the modern Jewish Zionist movement by 100 years at least, and it was partly motivated by, well, let's go send the Jews somewhere else. We don't like the fact that they're getting equal rights in Europe, and all the other anti-Semitic myths and stories that went along with that. There was a combination of this theological thing of, well, wanting to bring about the second coming of Christ by reestablishing the Jewish kingdom in Palestine, which is what you hear from some of the Christian Zionists today. That's some very weird theological interpretation, but also just a lot of hatred of Jews. It's, well, let's get rid of our Jews, and so what if we do it on the backs of the Palestinians? They're not civilized people either. But that was the whole. So it was a very, very mixed attitude, and really obviously tragic for everybody who's there right now.
But we're still yet to receive an apology.
Oh yeah, that's needed.
Britain. I've repeatedly said that at the time it was Queen Elizabeth that needed to get off her high horse and apologize to the Palestinians. So now we need to say that the king needs to get off his high horse and apologize to the Palestinians for what Britain has done to them.
I need to apologize to a lot of peoples around the world who were colonized by Britain.
Let's see if they let me in Britain after this comment. All right. Well, thanks, everyone. It looks like we have one more hand raised, and that's Dr. Azra Hussein. And this will be the last panelist we add. Dr. Azra declined. Okay, sorry. If well, I'll try one more time in case you hit the wrong button by accident. Nope. Okay.
Dr. Husseini is saying I didn't decline, so it sounds like there we
Maybe
go.
it was by mistake the first time. All right, so let's see here. Dr. Hussein, please unmute yourself, turn your camera on, and tell us what you have in mind. And then this will be the last portion of the program. Okay, there you are. Go ahead.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum, everybody. My name is Dr. Azra Husseini, and we can disclose our location, but here is a family from Gaza who heard that Mr. Faisal, you are from Salama, which is the town where our friend's grandmother was, and she wants to talk about her experience from
wow.
during the Nakba. So she wants to speak to you about it, and in the end, she's going to say
Yeah.
that how they want to be remembered.
Hi, Salam
Hello.
alaikum.
Alain.
I'm Sohag. My origin is from Salama, Yafa. Yeah,
Baladiya.
yeah, in the same origin village. Yeah. Yeah,
But
my,
what family? What is your family name in Salaman? What was it?
I can't.
You can't. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. That's fine.
From Salama,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Abu Afash.
Abu Hafiz. I mean, I have a book that I could show you. It has all the family trees from Salama in it.
Yeah, Abu Afash. I'm Sohad Abu Afash
Yeah.
from Salama in Yafa.
Okay.
Okay, my grandmother was pregnant, and my father was 2 years old.
Say the name of your grandmother. Anisa.
Yeah, my grandmother is Anisa. She was pregnant, and she lived. She was a Ghazian woman. She got married to Salama man. Okay. In 1948, she runs by lives and her kids to Gaza, and she left all her belongings behind. My father is his name is Saeed. He was only 2 years.
And at the time?
At the time, there is no cars, there is no vans, and they are not lucky to have a vehicle. So she was pregnant, and she carried her kids, 2 years old, and she walked, and she left everything behind, her clothing, her money, her property, and she went on her foot. She's pregnant. And she was very, very brave and intelligent. She went to Gaza, and she left her kids and her husband in Gaza for 2 weeks. Then she decided to return back to get her golden and her money. Mashallah, she was very intelligent. She had it all under the ground. And she made herself as a sheep guide, and she returned back after 2 weeks, and she knocked at her, she has keys, but she didn't use it. She knocked at her house, and there is a Jewish woman opened for her, and she said, "What do you want?" She said, "I just want a cup of water, because I'm very tired. I'm just a sheep guide, And she, mashallah, go to the ground, and she took all her golden and her money. And she said, thank you for your cup of water. And she, mashallah, then she returned back to by her, and she was very lucky.
She went back to Gaza.
She was very bad, yeah, and she returned back to Gaza.
Yeah.
Faisal, I have a question. How long would that distance be by foot? And we were very lucky to see the documentary, because we now identify the date that this grandmother Anisa, actually it was 26th of April 1948 when this village Salama was taken over by the Zionists and destroyed. So what is the distance that Anisa would have walked pregnant and with the 2-year-old?
Well, Salama is only 5 kilometers east of Jaffa, so it's
I
very
see.
close. It's
Okay.
a suburb of Jaffa. So you figure out the distance between Jaffa and Gaza. For somebody to walk it, it will take many days. It's not like something.
Wow.
Wow, yeah, many
Okay.
days, yeah.
It will take
But
you a week maybe on foot to walk it, especially somebody pregnant and not very mobile. So I would imagine it would have taken a week at least to walk it.
I
Uh,
I don't know, Mama.
So then
Awesome.
she walks back and she comes back to Gaza. And how does your grandmother live?
MashaAllah, she lived, MashaAllah, 113.
113. Wow.
Yeah,
Ooh.
Can you describe us how she lived, what profession she had, what she did?
yeah. I said, sewing clothes in order to keep her child survive. And MashaAllah, she was eating only olive oil and I know Hilba. You know Hilba?
Elba, yeah.
She drank Hilba. And she was very strong and intelligent woman. That's
Good.
it. Thank
Good.
you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I'll be curious. I want to look up your family in the book that we have at the museum.
Yeah.
It
Thank
has all the families, the family trees. Unfortunately, in those days, they were only putting the men in the family trees because they would consider the women members of their other families. They married.
Yeah.
What
Yeah.
was the name of your grandfather?
Grandfather his name is Hassan Abu Afash.
Hassan Abu Afish. I have to look. I have not seen that family name. It could be
No, no,
an
it's our origin, Salama.
Abu Afish.
Yeah, Abu Afash. Yeah.
My family comes from
I'm very proud to be from Salaman. Yeah, and inshallah I will return back to my original village.
yeah. My family comes from the Khalil al-Shamali
Yeah.
family. That's our the family name. And as you know, in Arab in the Middle East, you have your name, then your father's name, then his father and his father. It keeps going. When it stop it off.
Yeah, my father is Saeed Hassan Abu Afash, and originally he's from Salama in Yafa.
Okay. You know, Razan al-Najjar is also from Salama, who was in Gaza.
Yeah,
Ya Allah yarhamha.
Allah yarham. Thank you.
And
Nice to meet
Faisal, something interesting that we have found out, in amongst the Palestinian is that they retain where they came from all these areas. That when they descended on Gaza Strip, or when they came to West Bank, they retain their origin. I'm from Jaffa, I'm from Beersheba, or I'm from Salama, so that to maintain the originality,
Yeah,
to separation from the indigenous population. And I did not know that. I'm educated while the family
Yeah, we have
learning
what's
from the
called
family.
the double from. There's from.
yeah,
Yes,
The first from is where you're from now, and the other from is where we originally from
yeah.
uh, in Palestine. That's the Palestinian are identified by the two
Yeah,
from.
because we are refugees
Yeah,
and not civilian in Gaza.
yeah.
That's it.
A, a,
um,
a good number of the people in Gaza were refugees from villages just across the border, even. They're not as far
yes.
as Selma, but just as far as like 2 kilometers or 5 kilometers from the border.
Yes. I mean, the original indigenous population of Gaza was just the 80,000 people. And then during 1948, another 250,000, descended on it.
But please contact me separately,
We
privately,
will.
and then
Inshallah, Faisal, I
I
will
will
send
look
you
up
an
the book.
email.
Yeah. Do you have the
And
book, the Selma book? by any
No,
chance?
Faisal, I can inshallah send you an email
Inshallah.
Okay.
and
Thank you.
I will order the book. Salam alaikum. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us. Yeah. Okay. Well, with that, we wrap up today's program, and I will make sure that we have the recording on our YouTube channel by Monday, and I will also provide a link for people to access the animated map that we showed at the beginning. And it is available on YouTube, but I'll provide a link in the next email that I send out to people, which I will be doing that probably by Monday. Thanks everybody for joining us today, and I hope you continue to tune in to our programming and share your views and ideas and do this invaluable networking among people from Palestine. Thank you.
And Faisal, I only wanted to add that from, we talk to a lot of Palestinian families that what they ask us to remember them not in history, but in present.
Yes.
Salam alaikum.
Will do. Yalla. Ma salama. Yalla.
Thanks, Faisal and everyone.
Thank you. Ma salama, everyone. Goodbye.
Goodbye.